John, can you tell us what the shape of the ministry is going to be in the future? I mean, where do you think ministry is going?
That's an extraordinary question. I hate making predictions, especially about the future. Surely the thing for us to recognise is that the shape of ministry in the future must be the same as faithful ministry in the past. And as soon as we start to take that for granted, we're in trouble. The shape of ministry in the future is proclaiming Christ to the people that God entrusts to us, and proclaiming Christ in the community in which God places us, warning everyone and teaching everyone with all wisdom that we might present everyone mature in Christ. That is the shape of Christian ministry. I guess that as I see things, the thing that is changing is the structures that have supported that in the past. And so I think that we are moving into a time when much more of that will happen outside of the traditional structures, and we're inventing and discovering new ways and new structures in which to conduct that ministry. The thing that concerns me just a little bit is that we get a little bit more excited about the new structures than we do about the ministry that has always been what we're on about.
Well, what are the potential threats or issues that you see are just ahead of us as ministers? What are the things we need to be addressing?
Well, once again, it seems to me that it's very similar to what has been over the decades. What I find in my own heart and in the heart of every gospel-minded minister is a longing for a silver bullet. That is, a longing for a secret that will make preaching easy, that will make preaching effective, that will make church growth explode, that will fill our churches, that will change our community. A silver bullet other than the gospel, and that will change gospel work from being really, really hard, will change gospel work from having a lot of disappointments, from take all the frustrations out. There is no silver bullet that will change gospel ministry like that. We keep hankering for it, and if I might say so, every now and again, about once a decade, a promised silver bullet comes across the Pacific to us, and we embrace it, and we get very excited, and we think it will do it, and it doesn't. And we could run through the last few decades and we could describe each one that has come. I just urge us all to resist that temptation to look for the secret that will suddenly make it all easy, or suddenly make it all spectacular, or suddenly make it all... It doesn't work like that normally. Now, every now and again, God does an extraordinary thing, but normally faithful Christian ministry, faithful ministry of the gospel is hard work, unimpressive. The servant of the gospel suffers, and suffers in a whole host of ways. And the servant of the gospel who's not suffering is not serving the gospel, because it is the gospel of the Christ who suffers.
Let's take one of those silver bullets that's coming across the Pacific now. What do you make of this Reformed Charismatic title that is being used?
Well, I had a nice moment the other day. I spoke with an American, and I said, I think Phillip's going to ask me what I think of Reformed Charismatics. And this American Christian leader, who I would regard as Reformed in his theology and with a touch of charismatic about him, said, "What's Reformed Charismatics?" It was a great moment, really. He'd never heard of them. Reformed Charismatic, there's a terrific debate, of course. Just Google Reformed Charismatic and you get a great deal of discussion, and there are particular personalities that term connotes. And there is, again, something happening in the States that I haven't got my head all around, but very influential here, where certain folk with a Reformed background, and I'd want to say a Reformed background in a particular North American form, have moved towards charismatic Christianity. There are folk with a charismatic background who've moved towards Reformed Christianity. Now, they're two different things. They're two different movements and need to be thought about differently, and I think end up with two different things. The movement from Reformed Christianity is very often a movement from a very substantial theology in which God is sovereign, in salvation and election, to a discovery of experience in the Christian life, discovered in a particularly charismatic way. And the two theologies come together. I don't think the two theologies fit. but there is that blending that with its own confusions that's created. The charismatic movement is typically Arminian. The charismatic who discovers the sovereignty of God moves in the other direction. And this is a person whose own Christian life is shaped by a particular understanding of Christian experience and discovers the Reformed theology with the sovereignty of God at its centre. Mixed up with all that, as I understand it, in Reformed circles in the United States, it is normal to be cessationist. Again, I won't unpack these labels because we haven't got time. To be charismatic is to be continuationist. I don't think either the cessationist or the continuationist view is true. All right, I think neither is true. Now, again, I'm happy to talk to you over morning tea to try and unpack that. But when the Reformed person gives up his cessationism, he seems to become a charismatic. When the charismatic becomes a Reformed charismatic, he doesn't give up his continuationism, but he discovers the sovereignty of God. So it's a confusing situation. I think we've got to understand its particular American flavour. So Reform means something in the Reformed context, and charismatic means something in the American context. And to step back and evaluate this biblically. Briefly, we must be committed to the sovereignty of God in all things. And we must strengthen our faith in the sovereign God who rules over all things and rules over salvation and rules over the progress of his gospel. We must not become, therefore, unprincipled pragmatists. Our faith in God's sovereignty enables us to do what is right and what is faithful, even if it is not fruitful. We must be content to do that. We must embrace a biblical evangelical understanding of Christian experience, which is deep and profound, but does not separate the Word from the Spirit. When you come to know God through Him speaking His Word to you, and you embrace that Word because that Word changes your heart by the power of His Spirit, there is experience not to be matched. But to embrace a theology of Christian experience that separates the Word from the Spirit, he's trying to stop me here, the Word from the Spirit, and has a whole other dimension of Christian experience that is separated from the Word, is full of dangers.
Well, John, are you saying that you're neither cessationist nor continuationist, but couldn't you be both cessationist and continuationist?
Yes, I think it's both and neither at the same time. It's neither in the sense that, very briefly, the cessationist is a person who has come to a theological view that the biblical miracles cannot happen today. Not because God can't do them, of course, but theologically they will not happen today. It's the sort of view that if you think about the miracles claimed for Mary MacKillop, I hope that everyone here knows that they're bogus. You haven't investigated them, but you've got theological reasons for understanding that those claims... Now, in the Reformed camp, going back to B.B. Warfield, cessationism, the theological reasons for believing that certain miracles are not happening, at least they're not miracles of God like the miracles in the Bible, that was developed mainly in a polemic and response to the Roman Catholic claims for miracles. What are the implications of that theology in our day and for our controversies? That needs to be worked through. But I've not come to the position myself, and I don't think the Bible can lead you to the position that theologically speaking, the miracles of the Bible must not happen today. I haven't got a theological reason for saying God will not raise the dead today, He will not heal the sick, not at all. The continuationist, on the other hand, has a theological reason for saying the biblical miracles must be happening today, that what happened in the book of Acts must happen today. Now, I neither have a theological reason for saying they must not happen, nor a theological reason for saying they must happen. God will do His work. My job is to be faithful and to be obedient, not to bring about miracles. God will act as He will act. It seems to me, from observation, that He's not doing, in my experience, what He did in the book of Acts. But that's got nothing to do with Christianity being inadequate. I haven't got a theological reason that He must be. But nor have I got a theological reason that He mustn't be.